So what Christy and I want to do now is we want to try to hit some of the questions that have been asked. I want to start though with one particular question, and then Christy, we can just go back and forth and hit them as we want. So one of the questions we got, which is an excellent question, because we've been using the term EPIC and we've been using the term ABLE throughout the last 2 hours. So just a quick few words about that. So first, ABLE, Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement, is the national platform that sits at Georgetown University in the Law Center. EPIC is the New Orleans brand of active bystandership training. Now, we work hand in hand, and in fact, as you've heard, the New Orleans brand came first. Right? EPIC was the first department-wide active bystandership training program, and now we're happy that working together with New Orleans, we've been able to create this national platform called ABLE. When you as a police department decide you're going to buy in through these 10, frankly, not that hard standards, and you want to become an ABLE department, you can use the ABLE brand. Frankly, you can use the EPIC brand like Baltimore's doing, or you can use your own brand. But the point is, the concepts are all the same. So some of us talk about EPIC, some of us talk about ABLE, it's all the same. The New Orleans police officers that you heard from today are on the ABLE Board of Advisors, and this is just the national platform for that. So wanted to start with that one. Christy, do you have one particular you want to hit right off the bat?
I don't think so.
Okay, I got a couple to jump into if you don't have a favorite.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we got one or two. I think it was two questions about whether this helps officer morale, and I think that's a great question. And I can say from my perspective, absolutely it does. And my perspective comes from riding with police officers since 2013. I mean, I'm obviously not a police officer, but for 1 week every single month, I've been in New Orleans talking to and riding with police officers, and they confide. They're very open folks, even though I'm a monitor. And I can tell you, I have absolutely seen morale improve. We also have survey results to demonstrate morale has improved dramatically. But what I've seen is I've seen the New Orleans Police Department rightly show such pride in the program that they've created here. And one officer said to me, I am now proud to wear my uniform in public. Now it's so sad that she was not proud previously, but I think the EPIC program, Active Bystandership, has played one part in driving that increased morale. Christy?
Yeah, so I think a couple of questions. One is there have been a couple of questions about measurable statistical impact of active bystandership training. And if any of you know about, you've been working in police interventions or police reforms, you know it is notoriously difficult to measure the impact of any policing intervention for all sorts of reasons. But this one is particularly difficult because, as Ted Quant said, if it works, nothing happens, so there's nothing to measure. What we can tell you is that in places where it's been done, most notably New Orleans, it has been correlated. As they've been carrying out EPIC, there have been fewer uses of force. Now, so many other things are happening in New Orleans at the same time, right? This is one of the reasons it's so difficult to measure changes in policing. Who's to say which of those things is responsible for how much of the reduction of force? So we're trying to figure out ways to address that. There are surveys that have been done in New Orleans, and that is the reason we want surveys to be done in each of these agencies. And we want to ask questions of officers anonymously. Have you ever used active? Have you ever intervened? Have you ever had an intervention? Those sorts of things, so that it'll be qualitative evidence, but we can measure some of that. And we welcome all thoughts on things to measure and how to assess the exact impact of this program. But to be clear, one of the frustrations that many of us have had with policing for so long is so much of what police do there's never been any support for it. We've done it this way, let's keep doing it that way. So we don't see the lack, and we don't think anyone should see the lack of a randomized controlled trial on this to be any reason for not implementing a program like this. This is a program that makes sense, and we're never going to figure out how much it works if we don't try it. We don't try it a lot of places. So that's our take on that.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Ted's quote, right? This is about this creates many untold stories. And it's hard to measure untold stories. I think the next question I'm going to hit is a question about who can attend the T3, the Train the Trainer event in September. We throughout the last 2 hours, we talked about that as though an individual department would send trainers, and that's absolutely true. But it's not limited to that. The Washington State statewide police academy that Sue runs, they're going to be sending trainers. The New Hampshire statewide post has fully embraced this, and they're going to be sending trainers. So it's not just limited to a given department. It could be an academy. It could be a university. For example, Clemson University, and the police chief there wants to become an able center of excellence. So yeah, it's much broader than just an individual department.
And as Jonathan points out, it's not, and this is, we've had a couple of questions about this as well. It's the Clemson University example points out, it's not necessarily just municipal law enforcement agencies or state law enforcement agencies. This training can be done for federal law enforcement agencies, for campus police, and we've also had questions about small agencies. It's absolutely as appropriate for small agencies. And if you're concerned, we don't have an officer to spend the time being an able instructor. We send our officers out because we're such a small agency to someone else. Definitely be in contact with us. We're more than happy to work with smaller agencies to come together so that you can have one trainer train a number of agencies at the same time, or whatever's going to work. We're still figuring this out as well, but there's no reason that being from a small agency should mean that you aren't going to participate in this. One thing to remember about small agencies is they're often present on the scene with a lot of other agencies. And we have found that active bystandership can be particularly useful in some of those contexts as well.
And I think it's worth pointing out that there are some other creative solutions for smaller agencies to get more involved. Last year, a wonderful company up in Iowa, HNI Furniture, they actually paid to bring trainers out for their local police department. So there's, as we go on and as this training comes together, there are going to be some creative solutions for some of the smaller departments that might not be able to participate in a big way. Sorry, Chrissy, go on.
No, go ahead. I was going to address another question.
Well, yeah, no, I was just going to use the concept of who's invited to answer another question about is it open to federal agencies? And I thought that's a neat question. Joel Devoskin, who you heard from, and Paul Noel, who you heard from, and Mary Howell, who you heard from, and I were speaking at a psychology convention last year that Joel invited us to. And after it was over, 3 different federal agencies came over and asked us if they could get ABLE training. So the answer is sure, absolutely. Now, they haven't reached out to officially embrace it like Philadelphia and Baltimore, New Hampshire, and Washington State and Charleston have, but it's open to the feds too.
Well, and that question about what being open to the feds is a nice segue to the question I was going to address, which does active bystandership apply in responses to mass protests and in violence by police and the use of force by police during those protests? And the answer is absolutely. That is one of the key contexts in which you need active bystandership. Those moments when things are getting heated. There are stories coming from New Orleans and elsewhere, stories of, protests around removing statutes of people who led the South during the Civil War. And those can get very difficult for officers, especially African-American officers who can be charged with protecting or preventing people from crossing over a line near the statute, and the tempers can get quite high. And we've seen that in the protests over the past several weeks, and we've seen the impact of officers who are able to intervene and cool things down, and we've seen the impact when those officers are not there. it's absolutely a key part of that exact kind of situation, of a better response to that exact kind of situation.
One of the other questions, I think we received this one from a few different people, and at least in different versions, was what sort of hurdle does the hierarchy and seniority within a police department create for teaching something like active bystandership? Well, it does create a hurdle, but it's not an insurmountable one. The inhibitors that Dr. Staub and Dr. Dvoskin and others have talked about, the inhibitors to intervention, apply more readily in a hierarchical structure. You'll notice early on when we were talking about some of the other industries that have used active bystandership to solve their problems, the medical profession, airline cockpits, all hierarchical. So to recognize that the hierarchy creates a hurdle is important. One of the ways the ABLE and the EPIC program teach officers to overcome that is by borrowing something the military uses called PACE, P-A-C-E. It's actually, we talk a lot about de-escalation. PACE is actually a theory of escalation. So a younger officer has a way that he or she can escalate the intervention where time permits. Now, sometimes time doesn't permit an escalation and you have to jump right in and move the knee off the neck. But sometimes, and in fact, in most cases, you have the opportunity to escalate an intervention. A probing question, an alert, a challenge, and an emergency. And we don't have time to get into that here, but I just think it's important to point out, and we'll talk more about this at the EPIC conference in New Orleans, but we do think long and hard about how you intervene in a hierarchical context.
Yeah, and I will say only that what we know from what we can tell about the George Floyd incident, it looks like that intervention never got past the probing question, and that really shows you the need to many officers have this desire, this instinct, but whether we understand it or not, they won't be able to do more than that unless they really are prepared in advance.
Christy, you wanna take the next one?
Well, there's a question about whether the recording will be available after today, and I will say that we are definitely going to try to do that. We have to do a slight bit of editing, and I'm not sure we've checked with all the participants to make sure they're okay with recording it. My guess would be that they are. I mean, it's been recorded, but that they're okay with making the recording available later. My guess is that they are. So I believe the answer to that question is yes, we will make this available. But let me, we will send all the registrants a follow-up email to clarify that and give you some certainty.
Yeah, there's a question about what officers say about these techniques when they learn them. So I don't teach rank and file officers this because I think police officers are best teaching police officers this, but I have, as a favor to many departments, taught kind of a 3 or 4 hour overview for the leadership and the command staff. And in fact, just this week, I did that. The Northern Virginia Police Academy asked me to come in and do that. And the only reason I mention that is because, it reminded me their reaction was very similar to the reaction I typically see among police officers. And that is 5 minutes of telling them, well, I'd say 2 minutes of saying, I'm not interested. And then 2 minutes of saying we do this anyway. And then all the rest of the time, total buy-in and heads nodding and saying, oh, I see why that happens, or I see how that works, or yes, that inhibitor has infected me, and now I know how to get around it. So I can say almost to a person that the officers react very, very positively, almost universally, to the techniques that they're taught through this training. Officers like learning new skills, and this is presented as a skill. It's a tool you can use to make sure you come home safe, make sure your partner comes home safe, make sure citizens are not harmed, and officers like the practicality of the skill.
So there's a question about how to share the information from today's, that was shared during today's open house with others, sort of a synopsis of what we have here. There you can go to the website, the Innovative Policing Project website at Georgetown Law. There's an ABLE section of that that has a lot of materials. In addition, the New Orleans Police Department website has a number of readings about the EPIC program, which is functionally quite similar. In terms of the upcoming events and the dates of some of these things, the ABLE website on the Georgetown, at the Georgetown website is your best bet. But we can send this information and point you to particular documents in a follow-up email that we'll send to all registrants, so you should be able to share this with people.
There was a question about the biggest challenges in changing cultures at a police department. Now that's a much broader question than we're here talking about here with ABLE. But I will answer it in the context of ABLE at least. And having watched the New Orleans Police Department do it, and now getting the opportunity to watch Baltimore do it, and being involved in helping to set up this national platform, what I see are some of the obstacles to the culture. One is the very strong view in policing that, well, why do you do something? Well, we've always done it that way, and that becomes an obstacle to innovation. Getting over that obstacle in innovation then paves the way to accomplishing things you never quite thought was possible. The second one is fear of partnering with the community, or fear of partnering with non-police officers. I certainly remember in New Orleans at the outset, the idea that they were going to be working hand in hand with the likes of Ms. Mary Howell, who you all met today, was something that they never would have considered. But once they got over that fear of partnering, it's amazing what they accomplished. And then the last hurdle, at least to implementing active bystandership, that I see is a misunderstanding of what it is. Like you've heard today, ABLE is not a peer support program, although it helps with peer support. It's not a rat on your fellow officer program. This is a tool to train officers how to do what most of them want to do anyway. And getting people to understand what active bystandership is and what it isn't is an important element of driving that cultural change. Christy?
Yeah, and I think I spoke earlier to the ways that I think that active bystandership gets at underlying, sort of problems that are impacting behavior and policing that can address it more broadly than just intervention. We've had a few questions about sort of the nuts and bolts of the train the trainer program, so I want to try to address those. One question is whether you need to attach the 2 letters of recommendation with the request to attend the train the trainer session. Not when you request it, but by the time we have the train the trainer session in September, we will want that show of community support in the form of those two letters. The train the trainer event will be in September. I believe there's another question we have is about when registration will open. We will try to get that open as soon as possible, and we'll send everyone a link to that. Then you can sign up for that. You'll register for it, and then you have from now until September to sort of really make certain that you are good with those standards and are ready and able to move forward.
One of the questions was from one person that his or her chief was not able to watch today, but he or she wants to make sure that the chief gets all this information. How can that happen? So here are a couple of ideas. One, as Christy said, we're gonna try to post this online, and then your chief can watch this. But here are a couple of other things. I'm confident I speak for Deputy Chiefs John Thomas and Paul Noel and Arlinda Westbrook and Academy Director Deidre McGee in New Orleans. They are always open to questions. You can find them online. You can email them. I know that almost everyone on this call has been very receptive to help. I alone probably get 5 to 10 half-hour Zoom calls a day just trying to help agencies. Everyone is very generous in this group. So we're going to post the video, we hope. You have people you can talk to. We're going to post more modules on the website. There's all sorts of articles, as Christy said. There's going to be additional workshops held. And remember, there's the New Orleans Loyola EPIC Conference coming up in August. So a lot of different ways to get help and make sure your colleagues know how powerful this can be.
I forgot to mention one thing when I was talking about the logistics. One of the questions was whether oversight agencies can attend. And I think the answer to that is if your oversight agency actually provides training to a law enforcement agency, then yes, because that's this program in September. The EPIC conference is different, but the trainer program is really, it's going to be a real training, where we're going to actually train people to go back and train law enforcement people. So if you're involved in providing training to law enforcement, then yes, that's who the intended audience is.
There was a question about other agencies that have embraced active bystandership training. And so first, let me say that I think a number of agencies across the United States have embraced some form of active bystandership training. But to be clear, what we're talking about here is this kind of department-wide top to bottom embrace. That's what EPIC was about in New Orleans. That's what ABLE is about here at Georgetown. So we certainly know New Orleans has, and we know Baltimore has. They're getting ready to roll out their program. And as I said before, some of the entities that have already committed to send multiple people to the ABLE event and to fully embrace ABLE is Philadelphia Police Department and the Baltimore Police Department, the Washington, D.C. Police Department, the entire state of Washington, thanks, Sue, the state of New Hampshire, the Charleston, South Carolina Police Department, the Clemson University. I mean, I can go on. There are a lot more, but since this ABLE national platform is new, can't say today the agencies have done the work that it's gonna take to pull this off. You're next, Christy.
I don't have any in the queue.
Okay, then you know what? Let's just give it 30 seconds to see if anything else rolls in, and if not, we'll actually let people have an extra 10 minutes of their day back. Remarkably, we ended almost on time here. I'm very proud of everybody. So we're going to give you 30 more seconds to see if any other question comes in, and I think then while we're doing that, Chrissy, why don't we just each say our goodbyes? I'll start if it's okay. I just want to kind of end the way we started. I can't thank Georgetown University Law Center enough. I cannot thank Christy and her team enough, and Talia is on the phone with us. I am so proud of the New Orleans Police Department for being the first department to do this and to bring us to where we are today. These people you've heard from on the phone today, on the Zoom today, are really inspirations, and they keep me going. So, and thanks to all of you. I know we not only have police departments on the phone here, but we have members of corporations and we have members of the media. And so, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't put in a little plug that, for us actually to achieve our goal of training every police officer in the United States, we could use some help. So if you're a corporation listening to us, we would love you to reach out to us and help us fund this very bold and important project. So I'd probably be get in trouble if I didn't make that pitch. And finally, at least on my side, I want to thank my firm, Sheppard Mullin. My firm not only gives me is generous with my time and lets me put in all these pro bono hours, but they donated $100,000 to get this program up and running, as did the American Arbitration Association. So that 200 really allowed us to get this off the ground. So thank you to my firm, Sheppard Mullin, and to the AAA. And Christy, I'll pass it to you for your goodbyes.
All right, just very quickly, 2 more questions came in. One is, how can media know whether agencies in their area are providing this training? That is a great question. I want sort of my version of Jonathan's plea to corporations is my plea is to media. You should be asking your departments, are you providing training like this? What else are you doing? And then we will unless there are objections, and I don't think there would be, if people are going to be involved in ABLE, certainly we will make that available to the public so you can know whether you're an agency in your area is involved in this program. There's also a question about whether there's a strict limit on the number of trainers you can send to the training. I don't think there's anything strict about this program at all so far, since we're sort of figuring out what works. It is very much in the pilot stage. And so if you believe that you can send more trainers, that they'll go back and do some training, definitely be in contact and we'll certainly entertain that. We just want to make sure we have enough space for everyone. There's a lot of role play involved in the training, and so we've got to keep it at manageable numbers. And with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you for participating today. I want to have a special shout out to Tanya Weinberg and to Kaio Bernardos, who have been so helpful in keeping all of you with us this entire time. And a final thank you to Talia Tuck again, who's our program associate, who makes all of this happen as well. But really, most of all, the thanks goes to all of you for putting in your time, because you care about your communities and you care about your officers and you believe that we can make things better. We share that optimism. We are committed to working hard to make that happen. And we are grateful for you all spending time with us today to figure out exactly how we do that. Thank you all so much.
And the presenters, you're welcome to turn on your cameras and you can wave goodbye. Thank you all so much. It's been great to see everybody from all over. Oh, look, I love this. The camera's coming back on. We should take a picture. And by the way, Ted, your comment back then was that we need to take a picture of this. I just want to tell you, we did take a picture back in the day, and it was a picture at Dookie Chase with Mrs. Chase herself. And I'll talk to Christy and see if we can find a way to post that picture online somewhere. So thank you all, and thanks for all the listeners. Bye, everyone.